started again. Thank you all for brief intermission and coming back timely. As Commissioner Hedrick joins us, we'll get going. All right, City Council, City of Townsend Council back in session. About 8:54. Okay, Commissioners, we were discussing on second reading ordinance 341-24-1P. I'd ask for any other comments, observations. Do you have any questions or any concerns? I think the city attorney tried to get us to articulate what our rationales are. So any other things that commissioners would like to say before we call a vote on this on second reading?
Just when I vote, it's going to be based on the things I read. Those are the things I oppose. I want it to be on the record because things will work the way I vote.
Could you restate those, please?
I'll read them again.
The specific reason.
Again, one specific reason is because B3 allows shopping centers, big box stores, mobile home sales, lumber sales, auto sales, EV sales, boat sales, motorcycle sales, recreational vehicle parks, campgrounds, wholesale business, warehouses, storage yards, trailer sales, wineries, pain management clinics, distilleries, and micro distilleries. If B3 said campgrounds, it'd be a different story to me.
So you're saying B3 does not permit campgrounds?
No, I said if B3 only allowed campgrounds, I'd have a different opinion. But with all these other possibilities, it causes me problems.
So based on the possible uses of the B3, you don't feel comfortable voting a parcel in as a B3. So when would a B3 ever be voted for? Based on you're not liking that list of permissible permitted business.
I'm not sure I understand the question.
You're basically saying that you won't vote for a B3 parcel because you don't want any of those business types to be permitted in the city.
I'm saying B3 allows all those things.
And you don't want any of those to be permitted.
You've heard the citizens say they don't.
I've heard a few, but you don't want any of those businesses permitted in the city of Townsend, therefore a B3 zone is not.
I did not say that.
Okay.
Well, I think we've lost Commissioner Hedrick, so we'll pause for just 1 minute. Commissioners, any other questions? Commissioner Martin?
Before we did B3, those things that we have just talked about, other than campgrounds, were allowed in a B1. So these are just moving some things from a B1 into a B3. These things that are in B3 now used to be in a huge blanket of B1. And we have kind of broke that off to have a little bit more flexibility. So if we had never changed to a B3, this would be B1 and it would be allowed regardless. We wouldn't be sitting here today.
This time last year, we only had B1. And all of these business types, including those that Commissioner Jenkins read out, would all be permitted in the B1. It's not like B3 is a new thing that's threatening the city. We've had wide open possibility for all these business types in B1 all the while.
Okay. We're getting close, folks. very much. We are so grateful for you all coming in. I know this has been a long meeting, and we're grateful for all the comments the coach has offered. I think it really helps us a lot. We are trying to make sure that we set the right tone for our community, that we're trying to take those things into consideration. I'm going to make another adjustment to the agenda just because we are running longer, and we had asked our colleagues from Sevier County Electric to come in and address us, and they've been very gracious. I think they're going to have to leave. So as soon as we finish with this item, I am going to turn to the Sevier County Electric folks so that they can share some important information with us. So thank you as we kind of continue to adjust our schedule. I see Commissioner Hedrick coming in.
That's another question.
Sorry.
So do you have time for another question?
One more question.
The gentleman talked about making a special assignment or something to put this on back to B1, and it could be an exemption or something. I don't know what the term was. What would be the process to do that?
Yeah, that's a conditional use permit has been raised. We currently don't have specific regulations about conditional use permit. I'll let city attorney potentially address that question.
So, interestingly, what we in the Townsend Code refer to as conditional use is called a special exception. And under B1, and it's 8-6041H, the Board of Zoning Appeals may hear and determine if any use not listed as a permitted use is of the same general character as other permitted uses in the district and is consistent with the intent and purpose of the district. And then if you flip over to the BZA regs, one thing that the BZA can do is grant a special exception to the zoning ordinance. So that is a mechanism that exists where the BZA could determine whether the owner was entitled to a special exception.
Okay, thank you, city attorney. Okay, I think we're complete. So, commissioners, any other thoughts on this? I'm going to call a question on this. Okay. All in favor of ordinance 341241P, and I'm going to do a roll call vote. And if you'll indicate your vote yea or nay on this ordinance. And I'll start down here to my left with Commissioner Jenkins.
Nay.
Commissioner Martin.
Nay.
Yay.
Okay, I'll vote yea. Commissioner Hedrick.
Nay.
Okay, so that's 2 to 2. That is not a majority, and so this does not move forward on the second hearing. So that's the result of that vote. Okay, thank you all, and now I'm going to turn to our representatives from Sevier County Electric. They've been very gracious with their time. Really appreciate that. Mr. Robbins, thank you for sitting through quite an interesting
Thank you,
city council meeting.
Mayor, Commission. I just want to be informative of the project that we're going to be beginning in January of 25. Currently, our Townsend substation and the Warriors Valley substation is served on a 69 radial line coming out of South Pigeon Forge. And so meaning that if something happens to that line, both substations are out. So this new construction of a transmission line between Townsend and Alcoa's Heritage Substation will bring redundancy, reliability. It has nothing to do with load growth or any expansion. We can serve load now out of substations that we have, but it will require we're going to follow the TDOT right away. There will be larger poles. Currently, they'll be about 10, on average, about 10 foot taller than what we've got now, but it will be weathered steel, so it'll blend in with the environment. It'll be brown fiberglass cross arms, so it won't be anything that's that galvanized steel that I've heard some that are not pleased with. So we'll be going down our current right of way that we have now, and then once we get down to the on. We will continue on down through curves, so to speak, and we will again follow the TDOT right away. We will do all that we can to mitigate any type of vegetation removal. There will be some, but we're going to try to hang the transmission line over the roadway as much as possible, just so that we can mitigate any vegetation removal. And then we'll jump over on the other side of the river for about 1.4 miles, come back in and then tie into Alcoa's substation. You have Ryan Trenum he's the general manager of Alcoa Electric System, and then Jeff Edrick is with me. He's our director of engineering operations. So this is just to be informative, and just let you know that we're going to start that in January 25. And it's about $6.5 million project to construct this. And we're going to do it over a couple of years.
Okay. I've got a couple of questions, but I'll see if Commissioner has questions. And City Manager, did we put up something, or we have a fact sheet on this?
I think I can get it on the website.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll put up a fact sheet on the website so that our citizens can be informed on this. All right. Other questions from the Commissioner?
I'll ask a couple of questions.
Okay.
When you go from Wallen towards Maryville, there's some big, god-awful aluminum poles sticking up. Are these ones, I mean, there's a whole row of them.
Yeah, you're talking about the galvanized.
Yeah.
We're going with the stick.
Okay.
So that'll be brown, and I think we have some up just to the other side of the substation. So you can go and look and see what they look like when they come in to the town substation, so you see what they look like. And so we're going to blend these structures into the topography of the town, so that it's not something that's an eyesore as much as possible. But here again, we just want to reiterate that this is about redundancy and reliability, because Townsend and Wares Valley are exposed. And we have 2,588 customers that are served out of Townsend. We have a little over 3,700 out of the Wares Valley substation. So, and we've had that line that comes out of Pigeon Forge that gets on Wares Valley Road is exposed. We've had a couple of car wrecks. It was down and a tree fell into it. 2017 had both substations out. So there is cross-country exposure. So if something happens on that end, then we contact Alcoa, and then they can backfeed into Townsend, and we get those folks back on much quicker, and vice versa.
And as a citizen, I appreciate the redundancy, because we've all been, had power outages that we didn't want.
And we're the last ones that want it,
I'll
just so
bet.
you know.
Yeah, I know several of the guys personally.
Yeah.
Our right-of-way, our bicycle trail is an important asset to the city and to the peaceful side of the Smokies. So we're concerned about what you may or may not do.
We're going to follow the current right-of-way, so we're not going to be impacting any of those.
Okay.
So the poles that you see now, we'll just be going in beside those with about 10, in some places 15-foot taller pole.
Okay.
But on average, 10-foot taller pole, what you see now.
Will the old poles come down?
Yeah, well, once everything is transferred off of them,
They will come down.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, and sometimes, working with the telecoms, that
Yeah.
can be a challenge. But as soon as they transfer that over, and we will push for that, then we will move those old poles.
Okay. Thank you for answering the questions.
Mr. Robbins, you said this would start in January 25. When do you anticipate it'll be done?
We're anticipating a 2-year project, so December 27th, roughly.
Okay. And these poles will be sort of replacing our wooden poles with a metal pole.
Metal pole,
And,
weathering steel.
Weather steel, so it'll be brown. I've seen the one down there near the substation. It looks brown.
Yeah.
And
And when they first go in, it takes about 12 to 18 months for them to fully weather out. So they're coming off the assembly line, so when they first go in, they'll be kind of almost maybe dark grayish looking color, but they will weather brown. And it takes about,
You don't want me to call you the first.
no, yeah, exactly. So they'll about 12 to 18 months, they'll weather out.
Okay, and they'll be a little taller.
Yeah, on average, 10 foot, it's 15
On
foot.
average, 10 foot.
Because you're gonna have a transmission line on top, and then we'll have our distribution lines underneath, which is what you're seeing as the distribution now.
And then that line is gonna go on out past the city limits, out through the Hatcher's Cut.
Factors cut,
And
and then we'll be on the other side of the river, just a little piece, and we'll jump back on 321, and then build on out to the Harry substation.
okay, and people might see some vegetation removed.
There will be, there's gotta be, but we're doing everything, we've designed it. We started on this project 2017, and just trying to ensure we've done our due diligence to make it right and be cognizant of what everybody wants. And mitigate as much vegetation removal as possible, but there will be some. But we've met with TDOT environmentalists, we talked through all those issues, so we satisfied all those folks. So,
Okay. All right, commissioners, any other questions? Thank you all so much
All
for
right.
being so patient with us,
All right.
and we're grateful for your service.
all right, thank you. All right.
Okay, this meeting is going quite long. I'm going to suggest that we also let the group from Maryville College go and talk about the water study, and then we will come back to ordinance on the B2. Yep. Go right ahead and introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Jay Clark. I'm the Director of Environmental and Sustainability Initiatives at Maryville College and also a biology professor. I'm also here tonight with another biology professor involved on this project, Dr. Dave Unger. And we have 3 students here who are about to give you a quick little spiel. We were told 15 or 20 minutes, but we got it down to 12. And I just told them they have to be done.
Let's do it.
All right, I'll let Izzy Wright start first.
Well, hello friends, my name is Izzy Wright and I'm a biochemistry major and a senior at Maryville College. My colleagues are Caitlin Koster, she's a biology major, and Bruce Bailey, who is also a biochemistry major, and we are all seniors. So we all this summer worked on the Townsend Little River Watershed Project. A little introduction and a little background to the study. The study has been going on for 2 years, so there's a lot of data, and I just wanted to give you a little reminder as to what we worked on last year and what we expanded to this year. So, in 2023, which is last summer, we wanted to create a baseline of data so that we could look at, so that we could assess the health of the Little River and see how the water might change as it comes out of the Great Smoky Mountains National Park and continues through the city of Townsend. We also wanted to focus on the E. coli and fecal coliform levels and see if they impacted the stream quality in any way. Moving on to 2024, which is this summer, we expanded, not only in our team, but also in our data collection, to include more E. coli testing, so we expanded to a year-round monthly analysis, and we also increased the quality of our testing by, instead of using an outside company to test our E. coli, we procured instruments for Maryville College so that I myself and Reese and Caitlin can be the ones collecting the E. coli and analyzing the E. coli by ourselves. We also wanted to sample macroinvertebrates as well as use passive organic samplers to look at pesticide presence in the river. So our sample sites, we have 10 within the Little River within the city of Townsend, starting at the Great Smoky Mountains National Park border and ending at Camp Wesley Woods. And you might see a few sites up there that you might recognize. So my part of the project, I looked at the chemical profile of the river, which is the ions, which are the bits and pieces that are dissolved in the water, such as calcium, which can be from the limestone that the river runs over. We also looked at the pH, dissolved oxygen, and temperature, and all of those measurements were within the TDEC standards, which is Tennessee Department of Environment and Conservation, and they were all what we expected. We also looked at the total suspended solids. So while the ions are what are dissolved in the water, the total suspended solids are what is not dissolved, so what's free floating, such as dirt. And so when we take that sample, we then filter it and we just determine how much actual free floating dirt is in the river per 1 liter. And all of those standards were within the TDEC standards for very clean water. So that was really good. From that, I also, as a student from Maryville College, we work on senior theses. And because this is a very biology-heavy project, and I'm a biochemistry major, we also wanted to look at, from those total suspended solids, if the river traffic having to do with kayaks and tubing, if there might be any microplastics that are in those suspended solids. And so we expanded our total suspended solids to also include microplastics. With the E. coli sampling, we expanded from just the summer months to a year-round monthly sample because you can't really tell exactly what the E. coli is looking like just within the summer months. So we also wanted to look at them within the winter months. We also increased to weekly during the summer months because that is when we were mainly sampling, so from June through August. In order to be in compliance with TDEC standards and be super fancy and like to the book, how we wanted so that we could have comparable results, we completed 5 samples within a span of 30 days. And with that, we could validate our 2 instruments to make sure that they match up with each other and are within the expected compliance rules, as well as look at the TDEC standards for what E. coli in the river should look like. So within those 5 samples within 30 days, the averages should not be over 126 colony-forming units per 1 liter of water, and no sample should ever be above 487 colony-forming units per 1 liter of water. Some points of interest from that data is from the Wears Valley Road Bridge all the way to the Little River Pub and Deli. So I know this looks like a lot, and that's because it is a lot, because these are all of our E. coli samples from the entire year. And so you can see that red line, which is the 487 colony-forming units that no sample should ever go over. Now see, with all of these samples, not all of them are within those 5 samples within 30 days regulation, so we can't really say, oh, these are not in compliance. But you can see, based on that line, kind of where we might want to look at that. And so looking at this map, it gives you a little more detailed, kind of broken down idea of what the E. coli actually looks like. So once again, this is just the overall complete year analysis. And based on the colors, you can determine if the sample was over the 126 colony-forming units, and if it also had spikes over the 487, which no sample should ever be over. Now, with those 5 samples within 30 days, TDEC compliance samples, you can see that orange line is the 126 average. And it's okay if individual samples are over that, but the average shouldn't be over that. And we can see that there are samples over that line. But we looked further into the data and noticed that there was one specific week that was causing these averages to be a lot higher. And so you can see the graph up at the top left, or top right, that's the river gauge. And so during that week of July 29th, when we sampled, there was a lot of rain, and y'all remember that rain that came through. And so that could have that could have added to the E. coli presence in the river. And that bottom map, which is like the one that I showed earlier, but the actual samples within the TDEC regulations with how they should be with the 126 and the 487 numbers. So sites 3 and 6 are failed. We also want to compare the cold months versus the warm months. And how we did that is the cold months are where the river water temperature was under 15 degrees Celsius. And you can see in the cold months that there's a lot more green and orange, which is good. But E. coli also grows faster at higher temperatures. So we're of course going to see lower numbers in colder months. But while we still see orange there, those could be from a non-temperature dependent source.
Hi, again, my name is Caitlin, and I kind of have the biology side of this project. So my project specifically was looking at aquatic macroinvertebrates as bioindicators. A bioindicator is an organism that can be used to kind of determine the health of an ecosystem. And in this specific study, we chose to use aquatic macroinvertebrates, which you may know as the larval forms of many common flies that you may have heard of, such as caddisflies, dragonflies, mayflies. These larvae are found in the riverbed of many bodies of water, including our very own Little River. And they, a lot of people, not a lot of people, there are a lot of indices that assign pollution tolerance values to these critters, and those values can be used in data analysis and statistical calculations. If any of you are fishermen, you may recognize that top picture. Its common name is a stonefly larvae, and a lot of bait for fishing is modeled after those. The numbers next to those scientific names below each picture are representative of their pollution tolerance value on the index that we chose to use. That scale goes from 0 to 10, with 0 being the most pollution tolerant and 10 being 0 being the least pollution tolerant and 10 being the most pollution tolerant. So the closer to 0, the cleaner the water typically. So as you can see, our Plecopteran, or our stonefly, is indicative of pretty clean water. So that middle picture there is commonly known as a water penny, and that picture on the bottom will one day turn into a cranefly. Method of kicknet sampling, and we sampled in early August. Our samples were collected and processed in the lab, where we sorted the bugs from the debris and then identified them to family and to order, where I could then compare them to the index that we were using and use them to run statistical analysis. We did do this in association or in accordance with TDEC protocol, and that's the index that I used as well. So here are some of my results. I've included the scale that we used for y'all's convenience in viewing. So as you can see, that 0 to 4.55 indicates very excellent water quality, and all 10 of our sites along the Little River did fall into that category. And the only exception is labeled CC. CC was a specific point of interest for us. I also am using this as my senior study, and based on some of the E. coli data, we chose Cedar Creek, which is an input in the Little River, just beyond the river rat input. And we chose that as a specific site that I looked into further. So that is the only site that we found that actually entered into the good water quality category. But all 10 of the Little River sites were deemed excellent by our aquatic macroinvertebrates.
So continuing on with assessing the health and contents of the river, we also decided to look at pesticides. So commonly pesticides are detected using bioindicators like mussels, where they have to get extracted from the water and their tissues have to get analyzed. We're attempting to develop a methodology where you put a 3D printed or passive organic sampler that collects the data over time, and that way you're not disrupting the contents of the river while you do it. So the different pesticides that we tested for were pyrethrin, lambdacite, halothrin, carbaryl, imidacloprid and imidacloprid olefin. So these contain 3 of the most common active ingredients you see on the market in herbicides. And imidacloprid olefin is just like the first degradation of imidacloprid that you see. So imidacloprid might not remain in the soil afterwards, but imidacloprid olefin does. So that's why we looked at that. We first did a controlled study in the lab where we looked at different aquariums, some with Little River water, some with distilled water, spiked with pesticides to make sure that, hey, these things do work. And then we did put the samplers into the river over the summer. You will be able to see the sampler in the top right corner, as well as the signs that we put up that you might have seen if you've been here over the summer, explaining our study, what we were doing, and just kind of the study in general. The picture in the bottom left corner is of me sampling the flow rate throughout there, because we did need to look at that as a factor as to whether the samplers were working or not. So, summary of our conclusions that we have so far. The macroinvertebrates did describe the river as excellent water quality from the Great Smoky Mountains through Townsend. The water chemistry was also determined to be within expected TDEC standards, and the E. coli was determined to be for the overall good. Cedar Creek was determined as a point source, and we observed a lot of agricultural areas surrounding Cedar Creek, but we cannot define anything as a source of the spike right now. It's just a point of interest. We also need to do further testing on pesticides, the microplastics in E. coli, to create a bigger, full picture into what exactly is happening in the river over time. So some other future work includes sampling tributaries to look further into E. coli, just determining different point sources and things that are happening within the river, as well as changing samples to 5 samples within 30 days period in a model. As we said before, the TDAC protocol does require that all samples are within a 30-day period, and they have to be 5 of them. And that is so that we could potentially put out recreational alerts to people, letting them know, hey, the river might have high E. coli right now, just to better inform the public. Genetic testing for organism E. coli source would also be a great thing to look into. The 3 primary sources of E. coli are human, agricultural, and wildlife, and we can't tell the bears not to poop in the river, so if it was a wildlife source, we would have to, be okay with that. And then macroinvertebrate resampling every 3 years would be another great indicator as to the continued health of the Little River, as to continue the Townsend City mission of keeping the water the same cleanliness as it exits the Great Smoky Mountains National Park and as it exits the city of Townsend, as well as increasing the amount of control sites overall for the macroinvertebrate testing. This year we had 3 control sites with our twin sample sites. If we made that even, it would create a better comparison between the sample sites and the control sites to tell us, hey, this looks good, like this is the overall number of the control sites, this is the overall number of the sample sites. What do they look like? Are they the same or are they different? So thank you guys so much. We would also love to thank and create some acknowledgements. We have to thank the City of Townsend for their support in this project, the Arconic Foundation, the Little River Watershed Association, the Scott Science Scholars, the Quipsy Grant, as well as Drs. Unger, Duncan, Enns, Conkle, and Clark. All the people, there's been a lot of people that have put a lot of work into this project. So if anybody has any questions.
I'm good. I want to know if the rumor's true that there was a lot of copperheads found at the Abbey.
Okay, so in 2023, our is over here encountered, how many copperheads did you encounter? 3 copperheads near the Abbey. This year, Caitlin and I have seen no copperheads.
Oh, okay.
0.
I'm curious, the water looks pretty good and staying really good. So why can't it sustain the trout in the river that they keep having to stop. I'm not against that, I just want to understand why the river can't sustain the fish.
I'm going to direct that question to Dr. Andrews.
I don't know. That's a temperature thing.
Yeah, it's a temperature thing. The little river's just simply too shallow, and so what you get is you get this heavy sunlight that comes down and warms the water. Now, there are some deep parts, right? But the trout need a pretty extensive amount, so it's just a temperature thing.
It's not traditionally a trout stream right there, just so you know.
All right. Well, thank you all so much. One more question?
One more question. If you said that the water didn't pass those tests, then how is the water so clean? I guess I'm a little curious about that.
Which tests?
The ones that you were talking about.
So we only have those 5 samples within 30 days to tell us kind of how the E. coli works with TDEC standards. So we would have to do more sampling because with the data that we collected, we can't say 100% for sure.
Another thing with E. coli testing is E. coli forms in colonies, so that was the colony forming units that we were talking about. So if you scoop in the river and you just happen to scoop a fat chunk of colonies, then it'll provide a spike that isn't actually a spike in the whole river, it's just in that one part that you happen to scoop. So it's not necessarily indicative of the river, which is why we have to increase the testing.
So your results are very clean.
Yes.
Curiosity question. You did the pesticide study on the mollusks. Did you see any variation in the population as you went downstream? How many species did you find?
So the testing I did with the pesticides was trying to move away from the mussels. Originally, normally bioindicators are used. We're using a passive sampler to move away from using the mussels. And with the pesticides currently, we're trying to get an instrument up and running to get our data back from that. So I haven't gotten any specific data as to the concentration of pesticides in the river yet, but we are developing the methodology to get that.
Did you encounter any what would be considered mussel beds?
I did not.
Now, last question,
population
Mr.
and test only above the Y, what differences would we see in your results based on human effects to the Little River downstream?
Could you repeat the first part of that, sorry?
If you were to test above the Y to see what human impacts have been below the Y, because there's really just a part of that beyond there, what would we expect to see as results?
We can't tell for sure, and we would have to get specific permits to
It would be
be able to
pristine.
test within our limits.
But it would be measured elements within there that you would be finding.
We would have to test it to be able to see.
I'm not going to say, it's impossible to say really, isn't it?
Yes.
So one thing I'll add, since that was last question, kind of similar, is we mentioned a genetic test. You can actually take the water and we can send it off and they can tell you whether it's human, whether it's a cow, whether it's a bear, they can break it down. So the reason I bring part of that up is in the park, I doubt you're gonna see the E. coli spikes like we saw because, and I'm a landowner and semi-farmer, so don't shoot me here, but you know, we don't have any agriculture in the park, so you don't have the cattle in the creek and the E. coli coming down, so, and,
Some difference, but impossible. to
but
say.
that's the way we can tell you for sure what those E. coli counts are from.
Okay. Thank you all very much. Thanks, Dr. Clark. The health of the Little River is so important to our community for so many different reasons, and so we're grateful to the scientists at Maryville College for helping us to monitor. Okay, Commissioners, let's go on to ordinance number 343-24-1P, an ordinance amending the City of Townsend zoning map to rezone parcel 002.00, known as 7511 Old Highway 73 of Blount County, tax map 096J, from B1 tourist business to B2, from B1 tourist business to B2 neighborhood business district. And so we're not going to have a public hearing on this one tonight, so, but if this passes on first reading, it would go for a public hearing, and then we would follow that same procedure that we followed tonight. So let me ask the petitioner here, the landowner, if he would like to describe this request for a rezoning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Mike Akert again, and I own the property right next to the pub and deli on Old Highway 73, the piece of property immediately upriver. My grandparents bought it in 1957, and I'm struggling with permission to do anything with my property other than pay taxes and mow it. So I am asking to have the piece of property moved from B1 tourist business to neighborhood business, because I think if anyone were to read the permitted uses in both, they would admit that the entire old Highway 73 section down through there is neighborhood business instead of the B1 business. So I'm going to read, since there has been some discussion earlier tonight about things being permitted in B1 that simply aren't permitted in B1, so I'm going to read the B1 permitted uses. You can have stores or shops conducting retail business. You can have personal services, business support services, and professional offices, You can have public and semi-public buildings and uses following their review and approval by the Planning Commission. You can have restaurants and brew pubs. You can have hotels, motels, and bed and breakfast. And that's pretty much it. I'm not permitted to build a house on my property, even though the whole street has houses. I would like to. That's the main purpose of the requesting the zoning change. And in B2 that I'm asking for, unlike the B3 moving up from B1, B2 is actually a move down from B1 because it limits the size of everything that can go there. The uses that are permitted there in B2 are live and work units with the business owner and employee also residing at the residence, and bed and breakfast type establishments, buildings under 4,000 square feet in area, functioning as shopping centers, grocery stores, drug stores, hardware stores, barber shops, beauty shops, retail shops, restaurants, except for drive-thrus, and other similar retail uses. It permits professional offices and home occupations. So in order to build a house, I either have to get a conditional use permit from the Board of Zoning Appeals in B1, or I need to be rezoned for B2. With this property being in my family for 67 years, which more than 50 of it, there were zero restrictions on the lot whatsoever, I am attempting to use my property for something other than an expense. It's no secret that I want to camp on my property, but that's not permitted in either B1 or B2. But in B1, I can build a large commercial building and park my motorhome inside, and the residents of Townsend can look at my large commercial building in perpetuity, 365 days a year, versus my desire to camp on my property less than 180 days a year. I have urged the members of the planning commission to poll the residents of Townsend to see whether they would rather look at a big commercial building or my motorhome when it's there. And I'm just told simply that I can never camp there. So I'm asking for the rezoning because the use of the whole street is basically the neighborhood business instead of the big business that is B1. There are multiple single-family dwellings on Old Highway 73, including the lot immediately upriver from a vacant lot that's immediately beside mine. There is a fifth-wheel trailer on the first single-family dwelling property that has an exemption in Townsend's arbitrary and capricious laws that if you have a house, you can have a motor, you can have an RV there. I can't have an RV on mine because I can't have a house, but I can't have a house because I'm zoned big business. And so I was told at a prior meeting that I should ask for a zoning change, request a zoning change. So that's what I'm here before you to do. I would like the zone, I actually would like to see the whole street zoned properly with what the permitted uses are. The piece of property immediately across the street from me, for example, is car dealership, and that's not presented in anything except for B3. But it's there, and it didn't pre-exist zoning. Somebody let it happen. So I need help to do what I want to do at my property if the property in front of me is operating outside of zoning, and it started happening after zoning existed. I'm not asking to change Townsend dramatically. I believe it would be in the best interest of Townsend to let me camp versus building a building. A big commercial building is not a pretty sight versus a camper that's not there most of the time, or at least half the time. So, again, I'm telling you a lot more information about my camper than is necessary for this zoning hearing, but the camper is a factor because we could leave Townsend the least affected by letting me camp on my property that my grandparents gave me. So that's what I'm actually pleading for. So thank you. You got questions for me?
Thank you, Mr. Aker. Commissioners, any questions?
I'll ask the question. Do you really want to build a house, or do you really just want to camp on the lot?
I really just want to camp on the lot.
Well, thanks for your honest answer.
Well, I'm an honest person.
Yeah.
But since my property owner rights were stripped without me ever being notified and without me having an opportunity to vote in the elections that put you all in power over me, as a mere peasant, I would like to own the house so that I can establish a residence so that I can vote in Townsend if my property owner rights are going to be taken away by people that I don't get to be involved with the decision. You know, back in 1776, there were some gentlemen that put their name on a piece of paper declaring independence from a tyrannical government that was trying to do things to them that they had no business doing. And parking on my property, y'all don't really have any business doing that to me. I owned it a long time, my family owned it a long time before any of us were here. And this is just the ultimate not cool. And I need help.
Okay, Commissioners, any other questions for Mr. Aker?
I'm all for going to B2 to where you can have more houses and in business districts.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Aker?
I can ask you a question. If we rezoned his piece of property B2, are we then spot zoning? Or do we need to do what Becky's saying and do everybody all the way down to the Townsend Shopping Center?
It would be my opinion that it needs to go all the way down. to the
That's
town.
my opinion, but,
I have a question for you, Mr. Aker. Are you the sole owner of this property?
I am not. The Cola kids, Becky Cola's offspring, each own a sixth of the property, and I own half of it because I got my mama's half of the property. And all three of the Cola kids will be more than happy to authorize whatever we're doing, because they're faced with the expense of mowing and paying tax and no opportunity to use the property that their name's on either.
Mr. Aker, I ask you this question because I think we asked it at the planning commission.
Yes, there'll be an affidavit before the planning commission from each of them.
Just like we asked the other group tonight, usually it's property owners that will request a rezoning. And then we ask for a public hearing, we ask for the neighboring properties to come and give us some public comment and things like that.
Yes, sir.
So right now, we don't have this affidavit from your co-owners.
I understand this is not the final hearing either, but you'll have that. As 50% owner, all I need is one of them to agree with me that that's what we're doing, but you'll have unanimous support for whatever we are trying to accomplish.
I'm clear on that. And you did state that your desire, your first desire, is just to be able to camp on your property.
That is my primary objective from day one, when I got the letter telling me I had to keep it mowed like a lawn.
Well, I will take this opportunity then just to remind you and to let everybody know that there is a general prohibition for camping in Townsend. It's been that way since before I ever came on this commission. And so if folks want to take a look at this, this is section 8-410, vehicles and temporary mobile factory-built or factory structures. Except as herein provided, it shall be unlawful to occupy, allowed to be occupied, store, or place or allowed to be stored or placed any temporary mobile factory-built or factory-assembled structure, including but not limited to mobile homes, trailers, RVs, campers, tents, on any lot. So there is a general prohibition in Townsend that our residents have asked. You can't just pull up a camper anywhere, even on your own property, and necessarily occupy it for some extended period of time. Now, having said that, there are some common sense exceptions to this. We've talked a lot about RVs tonight, and you can store RV at your house or at your place of business, so there are special exceptions in here in 8-410 where you can store these things. Or you can actually park them and occupy them in a campground or in an RV park. Mobile homes, of course, have to be in mobile home park. And so I think, I want to be clear, because I've had several of our citizens come up and say, well, why can't somebody just camp on their lot? And at some point in time, the citizens in Townsend have indicated, and there's a regulation here, that generally prohibits that. Now, if that's something that people want to change, as I mentioned earlier, there is a process. We're always looking at our regulations to make sure that they're fit for purpose. But there are some exceptions that are allowed, and I think, Mr. Aker, that's what you're proposing by trying to build a building on there, is you want to be able to fit within one of these exceptions.
So this request to move from B1 to B2 really doesn't have anything to do with that exception. Excuse me, has everything to do with that exception, but that's not the reason for it. The reason for it is to be able to build a single-family residence on the piece of property. The property is valueless if we can't do anything with it, and all we have to do is pay taxes and mow. And I would mention the words arbitrary and capricious once again about your decision, your city's decision to strip my property owner rights. We own both sides of the river there, and we've done that for a really long time. It has been used as a campground before. When the ski show was at Big Valley, there were people camping there on the lot that worked at the show. That's the reason the lot is level instead of sloping down to the river from the road the way that it was originally. It was prepared at a major expense before I was out of grade school to be this purpose. And as easily as somebody wrote that in the book, it can be taken out of the book, or you can issue a conditional use permit saying, if you own both sides of the river, you can camp on your property.
Well, I'll tell you that we can't issue a conditional use permit on anything that's not in the city limits, so I'll talk about what's on the other side.
I'm aware of that.
It's not in our purview. But you made the point, and it is a point, that if our folks think that this regulation is not something that's still fit for purpose, kind of like the phonograph, there is a process for changing it. And we could allow campers to be occupied anywhere in the city, potentially, if that's what our citizens want. And so there is a process for that happening. But I would just also point out to you that among these exceptions, you can occupy RV in an RV park. You can occupy a mobile home in a mobile home park. Most of these exceptions revolve around storing a vehicle. And they're common sense. We have a lot of folks in town that have recreational vehicles that store them at their house, or, like even, I think, at a principal business. But what's not among these exceptions is occupying that RV. And so I just want to point that out, and I want to be clear, because I'm sure that I'll get a lot of feedback on whether or not this regulation is still fit for purpose. But there is a process for changing the regulations.
Storing them at their house. I get to look at one from my lot. I mean, it's right beside us. There's an empty lot, a very narrow empty lot between mine and that one. But I get to look at one, but I can't do it myself. I mean, that's one of the most offensive things that you could throw at somebody, especially if they've owned it for 67 years. But let me touch on, you brought up that I have the ability to go rent a place at a campground. I won't be on the river like I could my own property, and I have to pay for it every night, and I can't stay there very long, and I have to fight for an opportunity to get a reservation at the riverfront lot. They're sold out all the time. They're sold out all the time. You can't get a riverfront lot, camping spot in town. But I own one. It's absolutely absurd. But when I build the big building and I store my motorhome in it, everybody will get to look at that big building forever. And the big building's coming. I mean, it is coming. If that's the only alternative you give me, the big building's coming. If you don't rezone it, you'll just get to look at the big building instead of the big building and the house. But the big building's coming.
We do have a process for taking a look at these things, and we do have a Board of Zoning Appeals that will be able to...
Now, I can't get before the Board of Zoning Appeals. I've been trying for 4 months to have a hearing before the Board of Zoning Appeals, because Tennessee state law trumps Townsend law, and Tennessee state law says that the Board of Zoning Appeals can issue a conditional use permit. You don't have to have it in any of your language, because Tennessee state law says they can. And I've been trying to get before the Board of Zoning Appeals, but it's a big old circle. The Planning Commission won't hear it because the Board of Zoning Appeals has to hear it, and the Board of Zoning Appeals won't hear it because the Planning Commission hadn't heard it first and denied it. So we go round and round and round we go. And I've been doing this since August. I've been emailing you since June. And it's all a really big mess that you all could fix. You could let common sense prevail. You could poll every resident in Townsend and see what they think about whether they'd rather look at a big building. And from what I got told at this last planning commission, I have to raise the building 4 feet off the ground before I start building it. So the 22 feet is now going to be 26 feet, solely because we think that water is going to cause a problem to a steel and concrete building. But we're going to do it because that's what it's going to take to do it. If you all are not willing to let me pull up there, stay, and leave, and nobody have to look at it all the time. You won't be able to convince your residents that it's the right thing to do to make me build the building. You just can't, you won't win. You ask them. The reason that I parked it there for 2 weeks was to let everybody see it. Everybody saw it. Were you bombarded with complaints? No, you weren't. It's because it wasn't ugly, it wasn't intrusive, it wasn't hurting anybody, except for an arbitrary and capricious rule that you seized my property rights to keep me from being able to do it.
Okay, Mr. Aker, we're going to go back to considering your request for
Sounds
zoning.
Sounds great.
But I will say that we do treat everybody the same. And so
Really?
we do,
Really?
the rules apply the same to everyone. And so I know you're trying to.
Am I supposed to believe that because I live in Alcoa? Because that's not the way it happens in Townsend, sir.
Well, the rules on campers and RVs and where you can park them and occupy them, that's the same for everybody. And it doesn't matter if you have a great big.
Aren't you the mayor?
Yes, sir.
So you can't fix that even though you're the mayor.
Well, there's a process. There's a process, and we're trying to work with you in the planning commission. So let's come back and consider your request for rezoning.
So, sounds good. I have, for the record, everybody here, I have applied for 2 different site plans in front of the planning commission for the December meeting. One of which is to park a motorhome along the river, and the other is to build a big building. They've refused to hear my motorhome parked along the river that would let me go before the Board of Zoning Appeals and take it to a state level. They have denied me that opportunity bunches of times. And actually, legally, I don't even have to be denied that, because what it says in both B1 and B2 is the Board of Zoning Appeals may hear and determine if the use not listed as a permitted use is of the same general character as other permitted uses. So I could go before the Board of Zoning Appeals without, but they won't let me. They won't hold the meeting.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Aker. We're gonna.
So for that reason, could the previous property go to BZA for?
Their conditional use permit, they most certainly could. But they also could get it from the planning commission if they were so inclined. And that would be in the best interest of Townsend in the future, 20 years down the road, like the mayor said. If that stays B1 instead of going B3, that is in the best interest of Townsend to let them build their campground the way the other campgrounds exist via a conditional use permit. Totally legal, state of Tennessee. Look it up. Don't mistrust me, look it up. You can Google it.
Okay. There is a process for going to the BZA, and it's described in the regulations, and I think we've been trying to work with you on that. So let's take up we've got a number of other agenda items. Let's take up the request to do rezone from R1 to B1 to B2.
I make a motion that we rezone this property to B2 so that he can build a house.
Okay. Do I have
I'll
a
second on that we have the paperwork stating that at least one other property owner agrees to this, that it's not just a 50-50 down the middle, that we get that paperwork.
You will have that before the second hearing.
Okay.
So this is the first reading.
Yes, sir.
Right, so we'll have a public hearing after this, and we'll get a second vote. Okay.
That's right.
So Becky's made a motion, and you,
Motion.
I seconded under the, as long as
Contingent on
the intention that we have the proper paperwork stating from the rest of the owners of the property that they agreed to this rezoning.
Okay. We got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion is passed.
Thank you all.
Okay, let's go to the next item on our list. Special event application for Whiskey Run Smokies. So this will be deferred to next meeting?
Yeah,
Okay.
they were listed for December.
Okay. Let's go to the next special event application. This is for the 7th annual Freeze Out Ride. The date is on January 11th, 2025. The time is from 9 to 1 p.m. Location is Great Smoky Mountains Heritage Center and be organized by the Case Cove Jeep Outpost. And the way we do these special event applications, I'll ask the organizer to come and present to us a little bit about the special event. Then I'll see if I can get a motion and a second up on the floor. We'll discuss it and then take a vote. And I'll ask our public safety officers, Chief Condi and Chief Stevens, for their input.
My name is Brian Johnston. I'm the owner of Case Cove Jeep Outpost.
Okay. Can you describe the event to us?
Yeah, it's the 7th time that we've had it. It's a great January event where there's not usually anybody that comes to Townsend in January. Last year we brought 800 Jeeps to Townsend and they stayed in our hotels and ate in our restaurants and in a time when it was typically dead. We'll raise money for Case Cove preservation for the 7th time. Last year we raised a little over $5,000.
I have a quick question for you. Your estimated attendance is 200 this year. Last year you had 800.
That's what we had last year, and it's really weather dependent. We have no idea. We try to base it on what's going to happen with pre-sales. We've got that stuff up now. We're trying to gauge that. I did want to provide some numbers here based on what we said that we would do a year ago. Trying to alleviate the traffic problems that everybody says that we cause, as opposed to the benefit that we bring to town. The March event that we had last year, the Jeep Shenanigans, we turned into a poker run to alleviate the gathering at CCJO. That's what we call the store, CCJO. We lost 17% in in-store sales and had a 26% decrease in transactions. In May, we moved that ride off-site. We were down 32% in sales and down 21% in in-store transactions. In July, we moved that ride. We were down 21% in sales and 15% in in-store transactions. The biggest event that goes on in Pigeon Forge, the first day there, we registered 24,600 visitors in Townsend over 4 days. Pigeon Forge reported 50,000 in their first day. That's a 20% increase for them from last year, the year before. We moved our duck into the visitor center to alleviate the traffic on the corner as requested by the city. Our sales transactions were down 2%, which is completely fine, but an increase of 20% in Jeeps for the area is disappointing. That we raised over $8,000 for Townsend Elementary over those 4 days. So far in 2024, my events have raised $42,000 for charities, veterans, and organizations here in Townsend.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Johnson. All right, Commissioners, let's get a motion and a second, get it up, and then I'll turn it over to Chief Condi to get his input.
Make a motion to accept the 6th annual Freeze Out benefit ride for Jeep Outpost.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, I got a motion and a second. Chief Condi, if you had a chance to take a look at this one's going to be at the Heritage Center organizing.
Is this at the Heritage Center, or are you all leaving it from the Jeep Post?
There's no doubt that the reason why I was mentioning those numbers is us having those rides off-site affects Townsend. You guys, the traffic, the point I want to make, the traffic doesn't necessarily change. The people are still coming to town, but you're not getting any tax revenue from all those percentages, which equals tens of thousands of dollars. So I just wanted to make that mention. That's why we moved it, because that's what you wanted, but it's costing you. It's costing me and it's costing you.
The question is, this right here is leaving from the Jeep store?
No, it's leaving from the Heritage Center.
Okay.
Right, that's why it's going to cost us again.
Okay, Chief Conde, have you had a chance to take a look at this one?
Yes, sir, it's fine. They're just making a right turn out of the Heritage Center, going up into the park.
Okay, Chief Staggs, any?
Yeah, I don't see any issue at all.
Okay. Commissioners, any questions? Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor of Kate's Cove Jeep Outpost 7th Annual Freeze Out Ride to be held on January 11th, 2025, say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Opposed.
One opposed, okay. The application is approved. Okay, let's go to the next one. Smoky Mountain Scottish Festival and Games. And by the way, thank you all for the special event organizers. Been very patient.
Hi, I'm Scott West. I'm the new president of the Smoky Mountain Scottish Festival and Games. This will be our 43rd Games. Originally started in Gatlinburg, moved to Merrill College, which I am a Merrill College grad. I see the Merrill College grads in here. But yeah, we're so thankful for Townsend having us and hosting us. We're hoping for a bigger and better year this year. Hope the weather permitting it, we're a rain or shine event, but weather does play a part in our attendance. So really, if there's any questions, we've had a good meeting with both chiefs about any kind of problems we have. So I'm more than willing to answer any questions you guys have.
Is this your third or fourth year here in Townsend?
Fourth would be fourth.
Thanks.
Fourth year, okay. And I will just say that the event is planned for May the 16th through the 18th. It'll go from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. It'll be at the Visitor Center. And let's see what else I can tell you about it, commissioners. Let's see.
Well, I will correct one thing. I believe we're going to try to go till 9 o'clock. On Saturday, we have from 7 o'clock to 9 o'clock, we have a concert. I think it was reported that it's 10 o'clock. We're going for 9 o'clock because I believe the sound ordinance starts around 10 o'clock. And we kind of want to have a good buffer there to make sure everything's not down. So I think that's good.
Quiet hours in town will start at 10 p.m. That's right.
You thought, oh, sorry, Randy, go ahead.
What is your estimated attendance?
We estimate around 10,000.
For both days or all together?
It's been rough, kind of calculating the last couple of years. It looks like probably both days. We used to think it was a little bit more, but yeah, it looks more like probably 6,000 to 8,000 one day and then 4,000 the next day. So.
Okay, and I'm just going to note also here that you'll be applying for a beer permit, sound permit, vendor permits, and there will be traffic control.
Right.
Okay.
Let's see, what was your question before I cut you off?
That was my question.
Okay.
Okay, let's see if we can get a motion and a second on this one. Let's get any other discussion, and I'll go to Chief Conde. Can I get a motion to approve the Smoky Mountain Scottish Festival and Games, May 16 to 18, 2025?
I make a motion to accept the application for the Smoky Mountain Scottish Festival and Games.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay. Chief Conde, this is one of our bigger festivals. I know you put some thought into this.
We've met Chief Staggs and I already this evening prior to the meeting in here, and just going over some preliminary planning for the event. And it's not, we've kind of made some adjustments where needed, and there's going to be a less of an impact on traffic flow because of the infrastructure that our partnership is completed now at the business center. So it wasn't a huge issue last year, but that said, I think it'll be even better this year as far as traffic flow or any kind of negative impacts on the city. So I don't foresee any major issues or any issues that we aren't equipped to handle. Should be fine.
Chief Staggs? Commissioners, other questions? I got some questions from residents after the last event about noise, specifically drumming and bagpipes and things like that. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
So at the, usually the bagpipers want to start warming up around 7 o'clock to 7:30. So we very politely told them they can't do that anymore. So however we have to schedule it, they can start at 8 o'clock, they can start warming up, but that means we have to push a lot of the competitions, 30 minutes, that's 45. Anything else keep on that? Yeah, so.
The other thing would be the entertainment center. You know, they have, especially the one that has more raucous rock and stuff, and they're going to be done within the time frame of what ordinance doesn't impact.
Yeah, and we have moved, so our entertainment tents on one side and away from the residential area. Because of the rain, there was a big mud hole, we kind of ended up moving our large entertainment tent more toward the middle. I believe that's been taken care of, so we're moving it back away from any of the residentials right down that area, that side of the road. So, yeah, we're really trying to work with everybody in the residents. We want this to be an event that everybody likes, that all the businesses can gain a lot of money from. But really, again, Keith lives here in Townsend for years, family's been here forever. So we really want to make this a partnership with Townsend and not just us coming in and making a bunch of noise with the. Of course, you got to really love bagpipes to really enjoy the games, but it's actually a lot of fun for everybody.
I know one time you said there's no way to control the noise level of it. I went to someone's funeral and they had a bagpipe person and it wasn't loud at all.
The noise of the, well, I think.
All the instruments and everything.
Yeah, well, it depends on if you're talking about bagpipes in the band or the individual ones. Yeah, individual ones, they can be kind of low, but once you just start getting the band competitions, that's where it gets kind of loud because they have judges and they have to walk around and kind of hear everybody. But are you talking about the bagpipes or mainly like the actual the large entertainment tent?
But we're kind of in a valley, so sound travels a long way. So it reaches a lot of people.
Well, it sounds like you've made some adjustments, so we'll see how that works out. Any other questions, Commissioners? I know we're going really long. I'll call a question on this. All in favor of Smoky Mountain Scottish Festival and Games, May 16 through 18, 2025, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed.
Okay, we've got one opposed, Commissioner Hill. Okay, it is approved. Let's go to the next one. Next one I've got on my list is the Smoky Mountain Seafood Festival. This one is planned for June 13 through the 15th, 2024, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And let me see what else I can tell you about it, Commissioners. It's going to be held at the Visitor Center. I think we've seen this one before. We have live music, food, beverages, traffic control, assisted needed. Let's see, what a lot of information. Anticipated attendance, 15,000 people. Okay, I'd like to invite the event organizer to come and prepare, to present to us. This here, purpose of the event, bring fresh cooked seafood, live music, arts and crafts to the area.
Hi, my name is Marge Davenport, and I'm a partner with Robin Roberts Promotions, and we would like to get your approval for the Smoky Mountain Seafood Festival. I want to stress that it's free admission, so the folks within the community can come, enjoy it. It's a family-friendly event, kids events, as well as adult events. We intend to reach out to the fire department, and perhaps you guys can help us with parking. So there would be, I assume, a parking fee. That would go to them. It would not go to us. We want to also highlight some of the Appalachian crafts, broom making, basketry, quilting, candles, pottery, those kind of activities in our festival. There is an aspect of our festival of handmade arts and crafts from vendors from outside Tennessee, Southeast, but we would like to include as many local folks as we can in that group. We do have a VIP experience. We're calling it a dinner and a show, where people buy a ticket. They get they get seating in a VIP tent. 100% of the money that they pay for that ticket will go to Folds of Honor. Folds of Honor is a charity that supports veterans and first responders and their families. So 100% of those VIP ticket sales goes to Folds of Honor. We also will have seating available for the folks that don't want to partake of the VIP experience, so they can have a place to sit down, enjoy their food, listen to the music, and enjoy the day.
Okay. Thank you very much. Let me see if I can get a motion and a second to get this one under discussion, then we'll go to Chief Condi and Chief Town.
I make a motion to accept the special event application for the Smoky Mountain Salty Dog Seafood Festival.
Okay. Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay, I got a motion and a second. Chief Condi, you taking a look at this one?
Yes, sir. It's, this last time, it's a very worthy cause that they're trying to support, Folds of Honor. So I can't imagine a festival, this type of festival causing any kind of issue, especially being the first time having it. It's size-wise, I don't think that it would be much of a negative impact, if at all. So I'm sure it's a lot smaller than some of the others that we would have. So I don't see any issues with having it.
Chief Staley?
I don't see any issues at all. That'd be fine.
Okay, sounds good. Commissioners, any questions?
You do have this in Georgia, is that correct? Or
We have them in Aiken, South Carolina, Chattanooga, Tennessee, Augusta, Georgia, and another place in Georgia. And they all benefit Folds of Honor. We are a member of, in Tennessee, it's the Knoxville division. In fact, they're in town with their flag sales. It'll be at Food City tomorrow for Folds of Honor. We were out there, we got to see the horses and everything. Just to check, these are Folds of Honor. We gave them $30,000 for the dinner. And see, it's a VIP experience when you get dinner served to you. We do not collect that money. That money is collected by a different company that sends it directly to them. We get a town bill, and it was $30,000 that they were Folds of Honor. So, and that just goes to your veterans, to your police, to your EMS, to everybody. It's just not, it's a very worthy group. And they are involved in, if we go forward here and accept it, they already know about this. And we did have a meeting today with Budweiser, who is Folds of Honor. So they came today and they met with them, and we all talked and have a response to the event. Should we move forward? So we will have good sponsorship to get, everything presentable and good for the community, and everybody to come. It's free.
what's your longest running festival that you've had in New York State? How long have you been doing this? The longest, Chattanooga, or 20 years? Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
I have a retired physician assistant. I retired at 55, so you can't tell you how old I am right now. But, yeah, I've been in it 20 years. I got into it accidentally.
What was your first one that you all started?
Young Heritage, which is a community of 600 senior citizens, mostly come in from, it's Baptist. They come in and there's some Floridians that come in and everybody says, don't put a seafood festival there, it's not gonna work. And I said, it will work because when we do it in June, everybody that's up there is from Florida. So it ended up year number one, blowing the doors off. And we there gave the money to the food pantry that wants to shut down.
Thank you.
Okay. Commissioners, other questions while you're thinking? I'll just say that I'm recalling the guidance from the city attorney, particularly on recusal and following our own ordinances. So last time around, I recused myself on this, but I have come to sense and appreciate that I don't need to do that for this or other events like this. And then also the fact that we need to look at our ordinance and follow our ordinance. So let me ask again, any questions or any concerns about this one? Commissioners would like to articulate. Okay, all in favor of approving the Smoky Mountain Salty Dog Seafood Festival, scheduled to be held June 13 through 15, 2025, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
Okay, got Jenkins and Hedrick opposed, so this one is approved.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, let's go to the next one. Next event application is for Tennessee Winter Beer Fest. This will be February 22nd from 3 p.m. Company Distilling. Organizer Steve Fillmore. I think we've seen this one before last year. I've got the dates. Let me see what else I can tell you about this one. Let's see. There'll be live music, beverages, no food vending included. And a beer permit. Okay. Mr. Fillmore, you want to tell us a little bit about this event?
Yeah, matter of fact, that was your first permit last year. Anyway, this is, the Tennessee Winter Beer Fest is a fundraiser for New Hope Child Advocacy Center, Bullock County. Last year we raised $28,000 for them. We're a line item on their budget. This is, I think, number 13, year 13 that we've done this. Overall we've raised $240,000 to give to them. The funds are through ticket sales and through a silent auction. It is a Tennessee Winter Beer Fest. Only Tennessee brewers are invited. It's compared to these other festivals, it's pretty tiny. We sell 350 tickets, plus the little brewers tables. There's about 20 breweries, a couple of people per. There's no food vending. They are fed. They're fed well, but it's all part of the ticket price.
Thank you for that clarification. All right, let me get a motion in a second. We'll go to Chief Conde. I have a motion to approve the Tennessee Winter Beer Fest, February 22nd of 2025.
Make a motion to accept the Tennessee Winter Beer Fest application.
I have a second.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Chief Conde, 350 people at the distillery.
So my only concern is there's two banners, massive banners, 1 inch by 16 inches. That's huge. So
1 inch?
It's like correction type, right? No, this, how many years have we done this one?
This is like, I think this is 13. And
We always have an extra officer there.
We do hire
Never had, knock on, seemed like we've never had any issues. Everything's always ran smooth.
Okay. Chief Stallings, any input on this one?
I'm just gonna second what he says again, so yeah, no issues.
Yes, there is a tent. There is a 40-foot by 180-foot tent.
I saw that here, and I was like, this scribble is, I'm obviously misunderstanding it, 40 by 180. That's huge.
Yes, that is, it is a big tent. There is a big, flat gravel parking lot upstream of the company, and it takes up almost all that parking lot.
Shuttle service, where's everybody gonna park?
Most, directly across the street, and we work with the Townsend Police to get them across the street safely, and most of them, the tally hole is already sold out. They sell out every year, so, the bulk of the attendees are there, and we work in the past, we work with shuttles to get them to other hotels as well.
Any other questions? No. Okay, all in favor of Tennessee Winter Beer Fest, February 22nd, 2025, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that is approved. All right, commissioners, thank you all for your patience. We are ticking through our agenda now. It's past my bedtime too, so we'll try to move expeditiously. We've got two more items on our list. RFQ for Parks and Recreation at the Special People's Park and Board of Commissioner key priorities for 2024 to 2026. We'll take the RFQ first. Commissioner Satterfield, would you like to introduce this one?
I think we all should have brought sleeping bags, so I'm just spend the night.
This might be our longest meeting, longest in a while, for sure.
Okay, so I believe Gayla already sent this out to everybody to review, but Brad Peters with the Municipal Technical Advisory Service helped develop this RFQ for the Special People's Park of the redesign of the river access, so the ramp and the platform, and for people to be able to access the little river at that park. So, that part of the park has been closed since May. It's still very missed by so many people. And this RFQ is simple, yet it includes the items that we would need from a professional engineer or a consulting architect to draw up the actual redesign of the park, and make it ADA compliant. And so this is just really the jumping off point where we need to get started, and I do want to keep moving on this project. I don't want to let it sit in the way and be forgot about. So this is kind of similar. We did an RFQ for the community plan to see about hiring the consultants for the community plan. So this is similar to that, except it's specific to this park only. I did put down that the RFQ submissions be submitted by January the 31st. Typically, MTS will tell you 30 days, but I figured since we have the holidays coming up, we need to give the people that are interested in the designing of the park some time to get their documents together to us and their submissions. So this would be sent out as soon as Gail is able to get it out to the public and into the paper, and then on our website, and be promoted, not promoted, but for everybody to know that we're looking for these types of professionals. The only thing that I'm asking also that we really haven't worked out yet is that it also says towards the bottom, the last paragraph, it says the selection committee will review the statements of qualifications. I know with the RFQ for the community plan, there was a steering committee, and then there was, the CPAC, the Community Plan Advisory Committee was formed from that. So I just need some guidance on how you all want to proceed with, if this is passed tonight, how we would proceed with the submissions. Who would review them? Who would narrow them down? So I would just need further guidance if this is passed, so, since it is in the RFQ.
Okay, thanks Commissioner Satterfield for introducing this. I'm supportive of this. My sense is at this point, we need somebody to help us get started. This would be minimal cost to the city at this point. It's just putting out a request to get folks that are interested and get their qualifications. But of course, after we get the qualifications, if we actually got them to do something, that's when the money would start to be needed. And as folks know, we are looking for, different ways to be able to address this situation at the Special People's Park. It will not be inexpensive. And so recently we tried to address this, I think, as part of a grant that we put forward. We may need to look for some additional grants. This could be, quite expensive, but we just don't know how expensive until we get somebody to help us to take a look at it. So I'm supportive of this. I think in terms of identifying a selection committee, we could delegate this to Parks and Rec, we could delegate it to the Planning Commission, or we could, impanel a separate group of folks to help review this.
Can we get people from TDAC that help you come to visit the park and give you analysis? Can they be pulled in as
Yes.
review?
Yes, so Thomas Lamb is our TDEC consultant for this area. I believe he lives in Chattanooga. He's always a phone call away. If I need to Zoom with him, he's available. He did make the trip down here to the park in June, and then did his TDEC analysis then, but he told me, he said, when you put out an RFQ, if there's anything that we need as far as that goes, to let him know. Always, MTAS is a good group for us to have at our disposal. But yes, Thomas is available, and trying to think of Jameson Slacker was TDEC as well. So we do have some good contacts and people to help us. We actually have a local resident here. His name's Mike Bryant. Some of you all may know him. He is a consulting architect, and he actually was very helpful in figuring out what sorts of key points that the RFQ could include, and which of course he's not charging the city for his services, he's just helping in any aspect that he can, because he wants to see that park reopen.
It's my opinion that the planning commission could work at evaluating the submissions, and if they need help, we could bring in somebody to help them. But I think they're the right people to do this. I
Okay.
can see one of them out there wants to do it right now.
Okay. So the Planning Commission, we could recommend this to the Planning Commission to put together a committee that would review these applications, and they could also augment with some additional experience if they needed to.
Sure. And I would also like to say Mike Bryant, because he's local and he's a consultant architect as well, for him to be considered to be on such a review process whenever it's needed. So always have to have extra eyes on it.
Yeah. So if this is approves and moves forward, that would be a recommendation that we could make, would be to bring it to the Planning Commission and let them take a look at this and develop a selection committee.
Sure, that sounds fun.
Okay? Can I get a motion and a second? Okay.
I'll second.
All right, we've got a motion and a second. Any further discussion on that? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion is approved to launch an RFQ for qualification applications for someone to help us with design, permitting, the redesign and special.
Thank you all.
Okay. This might be our last item. I promise to keep it short. When I spoke in August, I recalled a number of the accomplishments that we have made in the last commission. So we've organized ourselves every 2 years into a commission, and we accomplished a lot of things in the last 2 years, but we have started a new 2-year term. And one of the things I've come to appreciate is that often this Board of Commissioners works in a reactive sort of way. We look at whatever is brought before us. But there are a lot of needs of our city, and I think that if we develop a more intentional work plan, it would really benefit us. So these things will take time, but we need to decide, in my opinion, on some key priorities and really strive to work toward these and get them completed over the next 2 years. Here are some of the things that I believe are priorities for this Board of Commissioners. Number 1, expand the role of the Board of Commissioners with respect to the Planning Commission. Number 2, complete the update of the community plan. Number 3, review and update as needed city administrative organization and staffing. Review and update the process for city budget formulation and implementation. We need to be a lot more intentional about our budget process. Review and revise existing ordinances. Number 6, develop new ordinances which may be lacking. Review charges and memberships of existing committees. We've launched a whole bunch of new committees over the last couple of years, so we probably need to go and take a look at those and make sure that they are continue to be fit for purpose. Review and develop project plans for key infrastructure projects. We just talked about one. Review and update city administrative procedures, for example, purchasing, timekeeping, and travel. Our city has grown over time, and some of our processes, I think, need to be updated. Review and develop as needed record-keeping systems with focus on standardization and digitization. We do have a record-keeping system, but I think it needs to be improved, and we need to digitize our records so that they can be easily accessible. Review city communications, update and expand as needed to increase transparency. For example, the city website, social media, and recording. So we're fortunate, we're recording our meetings now, but we're not live streaming them as some of our residents would ask. So we're grateful for citizens that might take that on themselves, but we would like to be able to do that in a more formal way. And so underneath each one of these priorities, I've identified some more specifics there about what I think needs to happen. Many of these I got from you all. And so there's a lot here, more than I think we could ever discuss at a single city council meeting. So what I would like to do is propose that we might have a an off-site, like a retreat, to talk about these priorities, to see if we can, if there's anything missing, if we need to add something, and to be able to be real intentional about what our work plan will be over the next 2 years. For sure, we will be transparent about it. That's my intent tonight, to be able to talk about these things. And so I've mentioned them all from time to time, but if we really want to get something done for our citizens, we need to focus our work, put it on some sort of a time schedule, and ensure that we try to get it done over 2 years. So this is pretty ambitious, I will say, but it is really important, many of these things that I've mentioned here tonight. So I welcome your feedback and your reaction to my proposal to have a retreat. We might be able to do this in a day or even a half a day. You know, we wouldn't have to go anywhere necessarily. We could do it here at City Hall. We could, you know, we would need to have some robust discussion ourselves, but we could also make it open to the public so people wanted to come and listen to us as we develop our work plan. None of this is a secret, and we often benefit from the input of our citizens. So I'll stop there, and Commissioners, beg for your feedback.
Making a workshop that's open for
when you call it a retreat, it makes it sound like we're gonna sneak off somewhere. So when you said it was gonna be open to the public, I took a deep breath.
Yeah, open to the public. We can call it a workshop if you want. That would be fine. I'm saying that because our usual workshops only require an hour or two, and we might, tackle one or two issues. This one, I think, is going to take, all day, or, maybe we could get it done in half a day. But I'm asking for your time as much as anything. And certainly, we can make it a workshop and make it open for the public, but it would be somewhat longer. And I think we need to do it more immediately, so probably like on a Saturday or something.
Or have multiple ones, because if it gets drawn out, people get tired and want to rush through things, so we can maybe pick a couple sections and then come back.
Okay.
I like the idea of maybe just having lunch here and spending a couple hours, like having lunch catered in and meeting through and getting some things accomplished. And you've been posted in the email that you've been discussing.
I'm for a day-long, let's tackle some stuff and get it done situation, for sure. But then, we can always break it up if we need to. But I think that, or even just a half-day situation where we come in and tackle a few things together. And I'm for that, because sometimes an hour is just not long enough to talk about things.
Okay. How about we do a half day, and we'll get lunch, because I'm getting a little peckish already this evening. So we'll look for a time, and my intention is to try to, coalesce around these priorities. So if you see something missing, let me know, and then to try to put it on some sort of a schedule so we make sure we get it done. And if we don't get it done in a half a day, say 4 hours, then we'll take another shot at it.
Yeah.
Commissioner Hendrick, appreciate your.
I think it would also, I think I said this a long time ago, and it might have been a year ago, but having like a standing workshop once a month where we are going over something. I don't know if we can do a standing workshop, because then you just call it a meeting, but designating at least for us to have one workshop a month where we are tackling a specific topic and just kind of getting down to the bone of it and digesting it and stuff. Like, I think that that's a really good thing to do, because there's always something that we can improve on or change or discuss, or, that's just my thoughts on that too.
It's like, as you said, the record player. We've talked about the record player being in our ordinances for a couple of years, but we haven't had a workshop to take that out. So we need to have workshops to actually do things.
Yeah, that's right. We did have a workshop where we discussed a noise ordinance. I think we spent some time on it, but we didn't come to any resolution on it. I mentioned the content neutral and things like that. So that would be, among the existing ordinances that we could probably review and improve. So,
Okay. Question, what is everybody's schedule like during the day, or we can do the evening? What are we looking at time frame wise?
well, I'll tell you what, let's take that offline. We'll work with city manager. We'll get a poll to go around and see if we can identify a half a day sometime and do it that way.
I'll do whatever day and time you want me here.
I appreciate it. I think we'll all try to be flexible and trying to do that, but I do think we need to do it quickly. So I would like to see if we could do it, before, well, probably after Thanksgiving, but before Christmas. How's that? Okay. We've had a very long meeting. We've got just a couple more items here. I don't have anything under unfinished business. We've got public input not on the agenda. I'll stop one more time for public input. I see Mary Kay, you've got your hand raised.
Is it possible that the city can have, for lack of a better word, a festival or an event to raise money to help support the expenses of the Special People's Park or for the swinging bridge? I mean, none of the other festivals are contributing to the city's infrastructure. So is it possible for the city to have its own event for those specific, in the city park? Pick one, pick all
Fundraising
three.
event for the Special People's Park, or
We
something
can start with
along
that
those
one,
lines.
because that's the most pressing, I guess.
Yeah.
Is it possible for the city to do that legally?
Well, it's an interesting idea, and we do have a way. I'll recall that we did pass an ordinance where money can be donated to the city, so there may be a way to do it. We'll have to look into seeing what.
The short answer is no, the city's not authorized to do fundraising, because we
Oh.
already checked with our in-house consultant about raising money for the park, but we can take donations.
Can't take donations.
So if somebody's having an event or a festival or something and they want to put down like such and such amount is going to be raised on behalf of the city of Townsend, special people, that's okay because the money would be donated to us. It's not us putting on the event.
We cannot put it on ourselves. If somebody out there wanted to put on an event for that project, that's allowed, but the city cannot
Which would be.
Okay, that's
do
right.
it in
That's right.
themselves.
How about this? How about if we have all these events and you know, at 4th of July, you had a table up. What was it for? I forgot. Signing up for,
We were giving out T-shirts and those glow sticks to the kids, and we had a Parks and Rec survey that people
we
could
did a
take.
survey. So could the city or Parks and Recs do the same thing? Have a table at each of these events where they ask for or they put out something asking for donations and have information about the Special People's Park, and get all these 15,000 people that are coming here for one event to maybe help donate and support for the Special People's Park. Is that legal?
Well, we probably have to consult city attorney on that, but, you know, I think we're willing to explore any ideas that could help us. So if it's, you know, within our scope and something that we could do, I think, you know, we can explore it. We have some limitations with respect to fundraising, but we did pass an ordinance where we can receive donations. And so maybe there's a way we can look into that. Okay, thank you for that input. Any other public input? Bless your all's hearts, it's been a long evening. Thank you so much. And I don't see any other business. Oh, Mr. Talbot.
You all turned down a B3 zone request tonight, and I am very curious about what alternatives a decline like this means for the future. And I know I'm going to back up a little bit. I haven't been coming to a whole lot of city council meetings or whatever, but I remember about 2 planning commission meetings ago, there was the B3 zone thing came up, and it was deferred by the planning commission, I think, at that time, because you all wanted to go and look at the actual use of all the parcels in Tuckledge Cove or in the city of Townsend, and make some distinctions, yet this didn't happen. And now, this RB3 request has been thrown up as, oh, this is going to be the first B3 ever, you know. And so there was a whole lot of discussion. There's a whole lot of stuff on the internet. And you all are going through at the same time a planning advisory group process, and you're wondering about whether, and I hear a lot of folks say, should campgrounds even be in this high intensity use group in and of itself. You know, I guess when I backed up and I looked at all this, I think your inaction is creating a burden on the process of business across the cove, because you are planning to do this, you're planning to do that, but you ain't doing nothing that I can see. While we people who are in business, and our tax dollars come right back to you, and we'll say in my particular case, there's a hell of a lot of tax money that comes into the Tallahassee Inn that gets donated, particularly to the Great Smoky Mountain Heritage Center and to other places like that. And you're talking about looking for donations for a park. And I'm sitting back here and I'm thinking, I might write a check for $1,000 for that. I might just send some money down there, worthwhile project. But you people are throwing the scotches under business. It really bothers me. I mean, it's like a socialistic or communistic action, in my opinion. I recently read an article. I want to talk about it for a minute. If you all don't mind staying just a little bit later, it's already 2 hours past my bedtime. That this article was written by Thomas Sewell. Thomas Sewell was, still is, a very prominent national columnist. And he was writing in 2009 about what happened in 2008. And I'm going to tell you what happened to me. My mama died in 2007 in September. But the time we ever got into probate, got through the probate process, got to the end of allocating her will to beneficiaries, she had saved for 93 years for her own personal retirement plan, and she had a good amount of money in the stock market. She had most of it in Ginnie Mae's and banks that were given tax advantages because she hated to pay income taxes. But when 2008 came, we could not do anything with those funds, and we lost over half of her retirement. Now, I read this article by Mr. Sewell. It really struck home because that's what had happened. I'll try to make this as brief as possible, but he pointed out that the crash occurred because so many people were deficient in their house payments. People big organizations had collected thousands of dollars worth of mortgages. And you had these bundling entities. One of them was Ginnie Mae, Freddie Mac. That happened to be two of the big organizations that my mom had put her money into. It all started back in 1980 when there was a perceived housing shortage in this country. In about the mid-1990s, Congress decided, whoa, we've got to do something about this because there are people out there who are spending half of their paycheck on shelter. They can barely get by on the other half of their paychecks. Mr. Sewell traced this back to the 90s when that happened. He traced it back beyond that. What happened was there wasn't really a housing shortage in the United States. On the East Coast and the West Coast, populations had built up to the point where planning agencies and city councils had decided that they wanted more green space, they wanted more of this, more of that, and so forth, until the housing prices had escalated to the point that the average person could not stand it. And he went through the whole rigmarole of looking at how these planning and city councils had basically created a major problem across the country that reverberated down for 20 years until we saw the biggest recession since the Great Depression in 1 year with the crash of all this. I only tell you about this because I think you all really need to keep in mind that what you're doing here, what your planning commission is doing, and what the entities that are advising you, your groups that you've organized, all these things have a tremendous impact on the economy of not just Townsend, but it reverberates to Buck County. And if similar entities were to do this all across the country, it would have an impact on Tennessee, it would have an impact on the nation. I think you need to be real careful because what you have done tonight with failing to send this B3, make this B3 determination because you're waiting to plan on something else. It causes us an impact. And it's going to cost an impact on some fellows in North Carolina who've been working their tails off for 6 months trying to get this done. I recommend that you really consider backing off a little bit on how quickly you make these sorts of decisions and on what basis you make them and what kind of impact they're going to have. Another issue that really comes to mind, and it's directed at one of you in specific, is do you have within your city a set of expected standards out of your officials, whether they be on the planning commission, the BZA, or the city council? There was a hell of a lot of stuff came across the internet, Pat, that I think created a conflict of interest in what you voted on tonight. And I think you need to be careful. I think you need to be real careful. You're liable to wind up in court.
Okay.
You really are. I'm going to leave it at that. I think that there needs to be standards established. There's one other thing that I would mention in those standards, and that is that when you, Mr. Mayor, appoint people to planning commissions, to BZAs, to wherever they are, that you don't stack the deck. The same person in multiple positions, and you're going to pass the buck up the line. You're going to fail to approve something. It goes back to the planning commission. Planning commission says send it back to BZA. One of you is on the planning commission, one of you is on the BZA. We don't stand a heck of a chance. We don't stand a chance when you've got the deck stacked. Distribute some of these duties out to other people. Spread them around and get your organizations fully staffed or fully occupied. I understand that there are some vacancies that have been vacancies for a couple of years on some of these things. Make it work. Make it work. I'm sorry. I know I've dished out a lot of criticism here, but I'm not really sorry. To be perfectly honest. I'm just telling you the way it is.
It sounded like, from what Mr. Aker said, that, I know we turned down the B3.
I can't hear very well.
From what Mr. Aker was talking about, I know we turned down the B3, but he mentioned about a conditional use that you could go to the BZA and petition them to say, let us have a campground in the B1. I don't know if that's an avenue that you would like to go through or not.
I'm not sure if that's an avenue that we want to go, or whether we want to go before the BZA, but I understand that Mr. Jenkins sits on the BZA, so.
Not anymore. No. Ever since I got elected commission, I got off the BZA. I'm on the planning commission because they elected me to be on the planning commission.
We will probably pursue some other avenues for this B3 thing, but you have to realize even the Heritage Center should be zoned B3, and most everything in the upper end should be B3s actually, and it just kind of breaks my heart that we spend 2, 3, 4, 5 months negotiating with the buyer and have it all scotched all at once, and a good part of it because of what? I don't know. I'm going to just let it go. All right.
Thank you, Mr. Howe. We appreciate the comments. Somebody told me one time, criticism is a gift. And so I would encourage us to take a look at every time we meet, is there a way that we can get better? Is there something that we need to learn from this? Code of conduct is not something that's unusual among bodies. And so having a code of conduct could be actually something that we might want to put on our list to take a look at this upcoming workshop that we have. Because I think we do work in a different environment these days, and so I think it's a reasonable thing for us to discuss.
I'm going to make one more observation. Many of the people here, I sat through one of your workshops here where you had the planning commission, the city council, and so forth all together, and I was sitting right back over there. This man came right there was sitting about as far from me to you, and I heard her twice say, we don't need any more businesses in Townsend. We don't need any more businesses in Townsend. And then it goes around to the internet, right back to you and your vote. I really feel sorry for you that you don't have any more guts to do that.
Okay, I think we've had a long night. Commissioners, we've made it through our agenda. I think at this point, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. We are adjourned.